What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel. We are continuing with Week 11 predictions, and we got a pretty interesting matchup here. Out of the Pac-12 Conference, the Utah Utes are going on the road in Seattle to take on the undefeated top 5 team in the Washington Huskies, and a lot is riding on this game. The Utes looking to pull off the upset, spoil Washington's perfect season, maybe the hopes at a college football playoff / Pac-12 championship appearance, while Washington is looking to do the opposite. They're looking to stay alive. They're looking to prove why this is a top 4 side. All of it and more coming up here in this video. But first, you guys know I got to say thank you for the support the channel has seen as of late. And if you want to help support me and you just don't know how, well, let me tell you, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell. That's a huge way. You're also doing a big thing right now by watching this video. Really, really big way to help support me. A lot of people don't realize that you're supporting me just by watching the video. But you can also like, comment, share. Really anything that you do to interact with the channel helps to support it. So whatever you guys are willing and able to do, if anything at all, I understand some people can't, which is fine. But whatever you're willing and able to do, it does mean a lot to me. But enough about me. Let's dive on into talking about some football here. It is week 11. We are in the second week of November, and this is where things start to get interesting, right? So the Pac-12 has a big-time matchup. Actually, a couple of them. This is the first of 2 we'll be previewing here on the channel. The Utah Utes and the Washington Huskies. This is a big-time matchup here in the Pac-12. And let's go ahead and talk about it. Let's start with the now 18th ranked Utah Utes. They are coming off of a pretty dynamite performance there against the Arizona State Sun Devils. I believe the final score is 55-3, something like that. My goodness, this offense has woken up is what I'm trying to say. You'll take a look at the stats here, and especially at that passing mark number. Yeesh, not a great number. Again, Cam Rising has not played throughout the entire year. They've also been without one of their best weapons in Brant Kuithe, and I know that that's an Arizona State side that has not played their best football, at least when you compare them to, my apologies, to the rest of the Pac-12 conference. But this is a Utah offense that really started to wake up last week. Again, hanging 55 points. That's always a very, very good stat. Bryson Barnes is starting to really take charge here as that quarterback. Didn't have the biggest day through the air, but I believe did have 4 passing touchdowns last week to give him 8 on the season. To go along with 5 picks, you want to see that get cut down mightily, but this rushing attack is really where it all starts. Jaquindon Jackson, Jalen Glover, Sion Vaki, some very, very dynamic options back there that can run the football. Bryson Barnes has shown the ability here and there to be able to run as well. The backup quarterback, Nate Johnson, has had his good and bad moments this season as well when he has been under center for the Utah Utes. But still, even without Cam Rising and even without Brant Kuithe, this is an offense that is, pretty solid on third down. Yeah, the number could be better, but they're still pretty solid on third down, and they don't turn the football over. If Bryson Barnes can cut back on the picks, and granted that Oregon defense forced a lot of turnovers when Utah played that game, but if you can cut back on those picks, this is the Utah team that already doesn't fumble the ball, you're going to set yourself up in pretty good shape to play a Washington Huskies side that's really, really good, especially offensively. But let's talk about the Utah defense. They're going to have their hands full with this Washington offense that we're going to talk about momentarily, but the thing that's really going to help Utah in this game is that yards per game mark. They're not allowing over 300 yards per game this year. They also force turnovers. They have a +7 turnover margin on the year. They've only turned the ball over 6 times on offense, +7. That means they forced 13 turnovers on defense, and this is a really, really good defensive line. They've generated 29 sacks so far this season, including 11.5 by defensive edge rusher Jonah Ellis. He has been absolutely dynamite for this Utah team this year. They're one of the best third down, I believe, if not the best third down defense in the entire country. They have a really, really physical line, not only being able to get home in the pass rush, but being able to stop the run as well, which is going to come in really, really vital because just in case you didn't watch Washington and USC this past week, Dylan Johnson, that running back for Washington, kind of went off. He had an absolutely massive game. By far was his best performance of the season. You may need him to come in handy here to be able to open up the pass game because that's where this offense starts. Michael Penix is one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and he's one of the front runners for the Heisman Trophy. 3,201 yards, 26 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Yeah, that 7 interception number, maybe you'd like to see that cut back a little bit, but hey, for the most part, Michael Penix is absolutely wheeling and dealing this year. However, going back to those 7 interceptions, this is an offense that is turnover prone at times, which you can't be against this Utah defense. Even though the offense is not explosive, it's not going to score a heap ton of points. This is a Utah offense that can be very, very efficient and can grind down the clock, which obviously for an offense as explosive as Washington isn't the most biggest of concerns, but it does limit the amount of possessions that Washington offense is able to have, and especially with how good this Utah defense is, you're going to want to be on the field for a lot of this game. You're going to want to be able to score as many points as you possibly can. They're over 500 yards per game. They're a really, really good third down offense. Michael Penix also is one of the best wide receiver rooms in the country. One of the best wide receivers in the country is in this room. Rome Adunze, Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan, Gio Bernard, some of these tight ends. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. A lot of great weapons here for this Washington offense. And it's a Washington defense that, look, has not really performed consistently well throughout the entire season. However, it has had its good moments. However, statistically, is definitely not a fantastic defense. They're allowing over 400 yards per game and over 270 through the air. Now, is that going to hurt them in this game? Probably not as much as some Husky or Ute fans think, right? This is a Utah offense that is very ground driven. They are very driven on the ground. They run the ball first. You see that by their offensive numbers. And without the dynamic playmaking ability of Cam Rising, I don't know how often Utah's going to be able to take advantage of the fact that Washington's secondary is very minimally improved from a season ago. They're also not a fantastic third down defense. 41.6% is not a great stat. They don't force as many turnovers as they lose. They have a -3 turnover margin on the season. However, the defensive line here and there does, or I should say the defensive front does do a pretty good job at generating pressure here and there. This is a Washington defense, though, that has just continued to find ways to win games. It's continued to find ways to come up with stops. It's continued to find ways to help this team, especially in the secondary, even though that pass yards per game number is not the greatest thing on planet Earth. You do have 39 passes defended, 9 interceptions, and 2 pick sixes from that secondary this season. Let's get in now to the keys to the game, your what to watch for, just kind of some things I think you should keep an eye on while you are paying attention to this one. I know Arizona State is not the best side to really judge this first bullet point on, but the offense, at least from what I saw in that Arizona State game, compared to the way that they've looked throughout most of this season, has revived. It's really started to find its stride, even though Bryson Barnes did not have the most statistically sexy passing stat line. Those 4 touchdowns, he was moving it very, very efficiently. This rushing attack is really starting to fire on all cylinders with all the weapons they have back there as well. It's a Utah offense that I think has really started to find its stride. You're going to have to kick it into yet another gear here against the Washington Huskies, especially with how explosive Michael Penix and this passing attack can be. You really got to be able to kick it into that second, maybe even third gear, fourth or fifth. You got to be able to kick things up a notch when you need to, because this is the Washington team. No matter how good this Utah defense is, Washington is going to score points here in this game. Utah's got to watch out. Dylan Johnson, look, all respect to Dylan Johnson, just had an absolute legendary performance against USC this past week. I'm going to go ahead and kind of go out on a limb that he's not going to go off like that again. Dylan Johnson has not been one of the statistically most successful running backs this year. Yes, it's kind of a product of the offense that Washington runs, kind of that pass-first style. Of course, you have one of the best quarterback and wide receiver rooms to do it, but this Utah defense is so good against the run that I believe it'll lead Dylan Johnson to really be stifled. So your entire focus is on Penix and the pass, force Michael Penix into some bad situations, get him under pressure, and defend this really, really talented group of wide receivers. And all of that to be said, keep this UW offense off the field as much as possible. Force turnovers, control the pace of this game, because the more you allow this UW offense to be on the field, the more that they are going to hurt you, and Utah cannot afford that here in this game, especially because the home crowd is going to be on Washington's side in this one. Speaking of home crowd, they're going to look for their Huskies to continue to be able to pad up that resume and be able to pad up that win column. Now, trying to get their 10th win, the pass game is going to be as vital as ever. Again, just kind of what I talked about with the likes of Dillon Johnson, right? Dillon Johnson, while he's a very shifty, very good running back, and you saw that last week against USC, with all due respect to him, this is an even better Utah defense. And I think this is a Utah rush defense that's going to have the upper hand against Dillon Johnson for the most part in this game. So while the Utah defense is going to need to focus on Penix and the pass, you're going to hope Dillon Johnson has a little bit of a better game than what I think he's going to have, but the pass game is going to be as vital as ever. This is a Utah secondary that is also pretty good this season. 32 pass defended, 8 picks, 2 pick sixes. So you got to be able to make smart decisions, but that's what Michael Penix and company have done all season long. And then with a much revived offense from the Utah Utes, Utah is going to be much tougher to stop, which may lead Utah to scoring more points than some people may think here in this game in Seattle. Utah has started to find some things working on the offensive end with their quarterback Bryson Barnes, with a lot of those wide receivers, with some of their playmakers in the backfield as well. They've really started to find a lot of good things that have worked from them with the personnel that they have available. Obviously, no Cam Rising, no Brant Keithy. You have to work with what you have, and I thought especially last week, Utah's done a very good job, and for a Washington defense that has had a lot of struggling moments this year, this is a Utah offense that you cannot take for granted. You cannot take you basically can't take lightly, is what I'm saying, and you especially can't give Utah free possessions. Washington has had turnover problems at points this year, and if they're going to turn the ball over and they're going to put Bryson Barnes and the offense back there on the field, eventually one of those turnovers is going to turn into 6 points, maybe even 3 points, but it could be enough for Utah to be able to pull off the upset on the road. However, I don't think it is going to happen. I think this Washington team is a little too explosive offensively, especially through the air. And while, again, I don't think Dillon Johnson is going to have quite the game he did last week, I still think his impact is going to be felt. I expect Utah to make this game a lot closer than the experts think. I expect Utah to be in this one. I think they are going to make enough defensive plays, force a turnover or two to really have them feel like they're in this game. But I think the number 5 ranked team in the country, the Washington Huskies, will come out with the win at the end of the day. I think the pass game is too explosive, and I think Utah's offense, I just don't trust it as much as I do Michael Penix and company. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. That was my thoughts on this game, and remember to play hard but tailgate harder. Got one more preview prediction coming out for you today. Goodbye.